Welcome to the Fortress Fitness Lifestyle podcast series, where we cater to you mind, body, and soul, with host Victor Francis and his special guests tackling diet, exercise, diabetes, and much more. Tune in every Saturday at 7 p.m. This podcast is brought to you in part by Virtuscope VA Services and Abini Pro Fitness.
All right. So, of course, we were having some technical difficulties. We're back on live now. So, right. So, I actually introduced myself. Of course, working at Eaton Heights for the past 11 years. We have seen a lot of persons with, as we're dealing with prostate cancer tonight, of course, PCOS, going to focus on that one. So, women, I would advise you maybe to take a pen, take a paper, and start taking some notes, because you'll need to know how to either overcome this problem or help you to manage this problem where you'll be in a state of, as I say, when the progesterone level goes up, the woman blossoms, right? You'll be in that happy mood, that happy state, right? So I'll be going through that a bit with you today, so you get an idea of what to do. Now, as I stated before, polycystic ovaries is one of the leading causes of infertility. And of course, there are a lot of women that generally are having issues trying to have children because they may have, like, let's say, cysts on the ovaries. Now, they can also basically, generally, it's a condition of an hormonal imbalance. So as we go through it, you will see the different symptoms. I'll talk about them a bit so that you'll be able to get to know what you can actually do to prepare yourself to overcome this problem, or be in a state of actually having that little one that you so desire. So is it possible to bear a child with PCOS? Yes, it's actually possible. I've seen that happen before. Is it possible to not have children? Well, that's like the, let's say, 100% in women that are dealing with polycystic ovaries. Now, women with PCOS, they tend to make basically what you call too many androgens. Androgens are male hormones, and that is actually made in the ovaries itself. So generally, as you have, let's say, elevated levels of this hormone, you'll see some women with, or if you look at bodybuilders, for example, some bodybuilder women, you'll see them with maybe a little broader shoulders. They might have a little hair coming on. So we talk about some of the different symptoms that they may experience when you have high levels of male hormone as a woman. Sometimes they tend to be a little more manly or masculine than some of the men that they're actually in relationship with in the first place. So even men have to pay close attention to this particular problem. All right, you may be a man that, I'm just going to touch on this quickly. In the state of, you're talking to this woman and she gives off this, hey, how you doing? Maybe she has a high level of male hormone. Now, women with PCOS experience what we call insulin resistance. So in other words, the insulin that is actually used to help to get sugar into your cell doesn't function as it's supposed to. Now, of course, if it doesn't function as it's supposed to, this is where some women tend to put on a lot more weight on the body. Now, more weight on the body means more estrogen. And as estrogen starts increasing, automatically cysts also start forming as well. Now, if you notice with the PCOS, the male hormones, these little cysts actually causes the body to produce more of these androgens. So this is why it's a problem where women tend to, develop more manly traits. So as we go down further into the talk today, I hope that, there will be maybe little questions that, because I know women ask a lot of questions, and that's actually really good, especially when you're doing a little, let's say, a health segment. You just don't want to be talking alone where everybody's just listening to you and you give enough information. It's always good to have a little matter, a little question from time to time. That is, of course, insulin resistant is the cells that don't respond to the signal that is sent by the hormone insulin. Of course, when that happens, you have what you call high levels of glucose, right? So that could be a diabetic person, high levels of what you call triglycerides, as fatty acids in the blood. And of course, at that particular time, you'll have increased storage fat, right? So fat actually starts to build up on the body faster than normal. So look at this. You will actually see persons who will do what you call ketogenic diet. Right, so we're back again. Yes, so you'll see basically persons who will be on like ketogenic diets where they actually use fat to lose weight. What they do, they generally take out the amount of glucose, or let's say carbohydrates, from their diet. What that does, when you do that, you're basically getting the insulin to function again. Because if you're a person that is consistently pounding the carbohydrates, for example, bread, baked biscuits, maybe roti, those type of foods, that's the carbohydrates I'm more or less talking about in simple terms. When you keep pounding that, the more you eat of it, the higher the insulin level goes. The higher the insulin level goes, the higher eventually persons start putting on a lot more weight. So what they discovered in losing weight is by pulling back on the carbs. Now, of course, there is the case where persons may do that and end up with problems. Of course, you need carbs for energy. That's just how the body functions on a day-to-day basis. So women with PCOS, one of the first things I generally tell them to do is start cutting the amount of sugary foods that you're consuming. Now, when we talk about sugar, we're talking about brown sugar, white sugar. I'm not talking about fruit sugar. I'm not talking about, let's say, complex carbohydrates from things like yam, dasheen, sweet potatoes. Those are foods that the body will appreciate because of the fiber content in them. The body, it's actually able to break down the amount of glucose that is coming into the body. All right. So in some cases, a woman basically, when they basically go through, let's say, ovulation, that's when a mature egg is generally released from the ovary. If it is that doesn't happen, okay, and the cycle, let's say the cycle continues over a period of time, you develop with what you call hormonal imbalance. Okay, now I'm just kind of skimming that through a bit for persons. So I'm not really going to give you too much of the information on that because we will need a whole program to deal with that. Now, what we actually looked at in studies, all right, we looked at basically in studies, they were actually showing where vegetarian women compared to those who eat, let's say, excess amount of animal foods, they excrete 2 to 3 times more estrogen in the feces. Now, when you look at the estrogen, which is a female hormone, if there's excess estrogen, it's actually linked to women developing polycystic ovaries, okay? Or basically forming cysts on the ovaries. So how we actually get a woman to deal with this issue is we basically reach a stage of, cutting back certain foods that may increase estrogen, cutting back environmental, let's say, pollutants that may be affecting that woman. And then there's what we call the pill. I want to just touch on this a bit, and then we maybe go further down into the program. Okay. Now, obesity, right? I just want to focus on that a bit. Obesity, too, generally causes the body to produce more estrogens. All right. At that time, generally with women, if they produce more estrogen, in that case, that's when the body is actually preparing itself for more like pregnancy itself. All right. So that's when a woman actually need more estrogen. But if it continues and the cycle has ended, if a woman continues with excess amount of estrogen coming into her body, these are the symptoms that she'll generally have. So, and these are the symptoms of PCOS. All right. So you're looking at infertility, infrequent or absent. All right. There are women that come into, let's say, into the clinic, and sometimes they are telling me that they haven't had their period for 3 months. They haven't had it for 4 months. And this is what we tend to see. All right. Is there anything that can be taken to reduce facial hair? Okay, right. That's actually a good question. And I would say shaving it off, that's number one. But generally, I would use what you call the essential fatty acids. That's omega 3, 6, and 9. Evening primrose, borage oil, they actually work pretty good to help with that. Okay. I should be able to show persons. Let's see if I can always show that at the end, but I'll explain it as we're going along. So some of the symptoms. So this is just for the men that are listening, right? So Mr. Victor, these are some of the symptoms that women will basically experience with polycystic ovaries. So we're talking about acne. So lots of acne or oily skin, weight gain, pelvic pain. They always complain about pelvic pain, thinning of the hair itself, increased facial hair. So they just asked a question about that. Dark patches on the skin, maybe things like skin tag, and also, of course, they get things like anxiety, depression, sleeping issues. Those are some of the signs and symptoms that a woman will get. Now, when the pill was actually introduced, I'm talking about the contraceptive pill, which women tend to go to if they don't want to become pregnant. Now, the continuous use of that, all right, is basically estrogenic based. So the continuous use of that is like having an extended cycle. And if you're having an extended cycle, eventually what's going to happen to you after a while, because of that extended cycle, hormonal imbalance, the progesterone, which is another hormone which actually balances both what you call testosterone and estrogen, levels starts to drop. As progesterone levels start to drop, you can actually look it up for yourself. If that starts to drop, this is where mood swing comes on. So one might lash out at a man, or she might become even more irritated than before. Okay, so this in that stage, as progesterone level drops, she experienced those things. So, for example, let me just go through the cycle a bit, the menstrual cycle, so that you will be able to get or to appreciate the information. So during day 1 to 4, the uterus lining itself starts to break down. Okay. During let's say from like day 3, the egg starts to mature. Okay, due to the follicle stimulating hormone. Okay, at that time in FSH is high. After let's say about from 4 to day 15, the uterus lining starts to build up due to estrogen. So estrogen is important for preparing the woman's body for pregnancy. Okay. Now, as we talk about the pill, remember I said the pill is estrogenic based. So guess what? The body is recognizing that, hey, this person is consistently pregnant. And being consistently pregnant, after a while, trouble starts. That's where all the different symptoms come. All right. The 15 is, let's say the 14 to 15. That's when you call the ovulation stage. So I'm just trying to go through this so people will be able to appreciate. The egg is actually released due to high levels, what we call luteinizing hormone. Okay, so it's high at that time. Estrogen is also high at that time, because of course she is at that stage where she can actually become pregnant. Okay. Now, the uterus lining after day 15, let's say to day 28, is basically maintained due to progesterone. Now, imagine if a woman has low levels of progesterone, then obviously she cannot become pregnant, or she cannot maintain the pregnancy that she has. So this is where, of course, the different signs, symptoms, they take place. So this is for us to appreciate the effects of the cycle. So that cycle from day 1 to day 28, all right, a woman is basically preparing herself to become pregnant. If it is that it continues where she has excess amount of blood that is coming out, where basically um, if she continues in that stage, she eventually becomes in a state where she cannot have children. Now, right, so question, can PCOS lead to cancer? Right, that's actually a great question. Look at it this way. If it is that during that age of having hormonal issues, definitely I would say a resounding yes to that. That's why women in their older age, if they are using, for example, let's say HRT, hormone replacement therapy, usually after a while they develop breast cancer. So in that stage where she has PCOS, she can actually lead on to breast cancer. She can actually lead on to uterine cancer as well. So this is where it's so important to balance those hormones. How do we balance those hormones? Of course, it comes down to diet, exercise. We'll also be touching on what are some of the foods that generally actually affect those hormones. What I've seen from research and from observing different patients that comes into the clinic, when we put them on a plant-based diet and cut out heavy amount of animal foods, I have seen, all right, women reach the stage of actually becoming pregnant as number one, preventing as much cancers as possible as they can, okay? And this actually ties up to a story that you shared with me earlier on, okay? Let me just give a story of myself. I had two girls came in. They were at the age of, let's say, around 20 and one was 26. They were actually having trouble with polycystic ovaries. Now, what we did, I said, we sat down, we talked a bit, and of course, every time you mention animal foods or milk or cheese or butter or whatever it is, they will get sad. So I told them, okay, right, let's give it at least about 2 months. Okay, 2 months trial, and let's see what can happen. Of course, they went on a trial, and within the 2 months timing, the mom went off. They basically went to their doctor, and their doctor was like, okay, what's really going on here? This doesn't make sense. Now, 2 months ago, I diagnosed you with PCOS. 2 months later on, I'm checking the ultrasound and I'm not seeing any issues there. What is really going on here? So that's just two persons. Okay. We have other stories that we can actually tell. Okay. So it depends on what you put in. So I took them off the dairy. That was the number one thing I took them off. The milk, the cheese especially. And then it took them off all the other animal foods, from the chicken especially as well too, because I'm a person that observes. I observe a lot. I realize some women actually come into the clinic and they are having recurring yeast infections. So sometimes I'm playing around, okay, why is this happening? This is not making sense. Okay, we took so much things out. Why is this happening? They mention, of course, this is just observation I'm looking at. They were actually eating out, and were using basically lots of chicken. Now, these are not chickens that are homebred. These are chickens that is on the farm, and they're eating. If you look at it carefully, look at the farms. They basically from a babe that will grow within 2 to 3 weeks. You'll see that chicken nice and fat. Obviously, there's hormones that is actually involved there. So I took them off that, and to our surprise, we saw a change where the recurring yeast infections actually went away. So that's another story altogether. But with PCOS, when we take them off dairy and heavy amount of chicken, okay, or just animal foods, and put them on a plant-based diet, women, pay close attention to this. If you go on a plant-based diet, which is surrounded by lots of fruits, lots of vegetables, basically simple stuff like your yam, your dashi, your sweet potatoes, and lower the amount of sugary foods like your ice cream and the chocolates that you so love, right? That men tend to actually go off on Valentine's Day and give you that. So men, maybe get a little fruit, get some flowers, get something different. So giving you a little tip to get the woman healthy so that she will be in the state of, having that little young one for you. All right. Now, of course, if persons have questions, they could share those questions. So I'm going to share another little story here. Uh, right. Yes, I know you'll be surprised. Right. So basically, this story is where a woman came into the clinic, and she was having trouble for years of conceiving a child. And she came into the clinic. She said, "You, I have to talk to you. Something is wrong with you." So I'm like, "Okay, what's wrong? I don't understand what's going on here." She said, I became pregnant. So I was like, "Okay, well," she said, "that's your fault." So I'm like, "Okay, I wasn't there at that particular time, and this doesn't make sense." Of course, put on just a simple program where we change up her diet, get her to exercise, get her to drink enough water, get her basically to reduce the amount of stress on the body. And within a month time in, she became pregnant. Of course, this woman could not have children for at least about, let's say, 7 to 10 years of her life. So those are just stories that I'm just sharing with you. So can a woman actually maintain this particular issue? Yes. Can they overcome the issue? From my research and also from actually observing certain women who comes into the clinic, I would say a resounding yes. Right. Could you put back up that question I saw there? Right. Can the HPIV at the clinic assist with PCOS? Right. So we do what you call ozone therapy. Ozone is basically O3 through molecules of oxygen. I tend to use that one with persons that has PCOS. The HP, it may assist, but not as effective as ozone therapy, because ozone actually helps to balance the hormones. So that will, right now, of course, ozone is kind of controversial out there. So, but Dr. Navarro have been using that for the past, let's say, 20 years, and he haven't had any issues with any patient that you could think about. All right. So, and of course, myself in my 11 years of observing, well, I would say before that, because I've been here since the age of 10 in any case. But other than that, that's something that they can do. How do we balance those hormones? Number one, as I said before, you need a lot of cruciferous vegetables. Cruciferous, let's say a lot of green leafy vegetables. What they do, they help the body, because of the fiber that's coming in, they help the body to get rid of excess estrogens. As you get rid of excess estrogens, automatically you start the progesterone, which is a hormone that balances testosterone and estrogen. The level starts rising again. As that starts rising again, guess what's going to happen to that woman? Oh, she's going to be jolly. She's going to be excited. She's going to be blossoming again. She's basically going to lose her weight. She's going to be in a happy mood again. All right. So, men, give her some fruit, give her some vegetables, cut out some of the chocolates and different things like that. Maybe I might get in trouble. So,
Yeah,
I want
you
to
might.
talk about that. Right.
Yeah,
Do you have
Doctor.
any particular question you like to ask Mr. Francis?
You hear me now?
Yes, hearing you know
All
perfectly.
right. Right. So you came up at a good time because you was mentioning just now there about Valentine.
Uh-huh.
And I know some of these women may watch you and say, but Doc, what are you talking about? I want my chocolate, I want my bouquet of chocolate and sweets, because our culture here, imagine Doc, you go on there with a bouquet, a basket of fruits, all right, for Valentine. I ain't think you go reach you go past the door, you know.
Yeah, it
Our
might be
culture
pot and
here,
spoon
it might be pot
coming
and
at you.
spoon. Yeah, yeah. Chocolate and teddy go hand in hand. Eh?
Yes, yes, yes.
but
Well, I mean
but then
that's what keeps her happy at that particular
yeah,
time, you know.
once a year might be that bad, right?
Yeah, it wouldn't kill them. It wouldn't
Right.
kill
That
them.
yeah.
But what I'd advise though, dark chocolate. They can maybe get some dark chocolate. It won't taste as good as the milk chocolate, but it's still a little healthier. It will help with blood flow, take care of their mood, it'll help them with sleep. So guess what? I mean, you're getting a even a happier woman now.
Well, the guys just had to make sure, and you know what? Take the
Yeah.
take take the bad eye but still give the dark chocolate, because in the end result, the mood will be better, and it will work out for you around that time. And
Definitely.
one of the things I want to ask you, I know you mentioned sugar, something like that, and
Sure.
also the bad sugars like refined sugar. So I think you need to explain to the people what is refined sugar that is bad. Also,
Right. Well, of course, refined sugar is like basically taking something and removing all the nutrients from it. Right. What you're getting is something that is just plain. It doesn't have any let's say vitamins or minerals or anything in that. That's just plain sugar, or as we call it, glucose, as it comes into the body as it breaks down into
oh
glucose.
yeah,
All right.
yeah, yeah,
Now, with sugars, it can become, of course, I've seen person use sugars and they haven't ended up with a lot of problems, right? Because they're using small quantities. But guess what? If you put a drop of poison in something all the time and you keep adding that drop of poison daily, eventually it will catch up to you, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's why we advise women not only to come off some of the heavy amount of animal foods, we
Mhm.
advise them to cut back on the heavy sugars. That in that way, the insulin starts functioning properly again. They will start to lose weight. Okay, that's why some bodybuilders will go on these regime where they will start cutting the carbs from their diet, and all of a
Yeah,
sudden, you see that person from being, let's say, a big person, all of a sudden they're nice and cut out, and they're
yes,
looking
yes,
slim and trim.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Mhm. Right. So I'm seeing a question there. If you can consume sufficient green vegetables, can you use a super green supplement? um, that's a great question. You can use it. I would always tell person to try to go to the vegetables as much as you can. Now there are some persons who have stomach issues. I know we're not talking about that, but I just want to touch on it a bit. Some persons have stomach issues where they get bloated or gas when they use certain types of vegetables.
Yeah,
What I've actually seen, if they can steam some of those vegetables, like let's say the broccoli, the cabbage, maybe the cauliflower, those type of food, because of the type of fiber, the hard coarse fiber that's in it, it's difficult to break it down. So sometimes you do all the steaming of that, and as it breaks down, it makes it easier for the body to absorb the nutrients coming in from it. But yes, I would say yes, you can use a green, let's say, supplement, superfood as we call it,
yeah,
right? Just
yeah.
for that person, right? But in that case, I would say use the vegetables, and you can also add
Supplement.
the green supplement to help.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah. One of the things, Doc, is that as I was listening when I came back on, I was here talking about nutrition, how important it is, when dealing with this condition that the women have there, right? And every time I get a medical person on this podcast, it always boils down, apart from this condition, it always boils down to what you eat, how you eat, right? And some of the foods that causes some of these conditions to even get worse, even if you was born with something like that. The diet
Yes.
is so, one of the things that the diet is so critical, in every single condition that we deal with today, this lifestyle diseases, right? So one of the things that we're trying to get across, Doc, based on exactly what you're saying there, is to let the people know how important nutrition is, how important is, consuming the right nutrition, and if, at least trying to do that, because you mentioned chicken there. I've heard about that long time. I've mentioned that to certain people. Just on the side, just talking. These eggs are hatching today, and in 2 to 3 weeks, they on the plate. That can't be too healthy eventually. You understand? And you mentioned some again, but the flour. Every time I'm having conversation with friends or people, let's say in the gym or whatever, and it's like ask people my diet, I'll say, well, one of the things I don't eat is flour. And it's like, gosh, boy, I like my this and I like my that. What culture? So that
Yes.
flour seems to be is a challenge for most people to give up because of cultural practice, right? And you would know that what it leads to, right? In the sense of diabetes and other stuff that is contribute to. And a lot of people don't know flour have sugar, it dilute to some form of sugar.
Yeah.
So I think you need
Breaks
to
up.
just, yeah. So I think you need to just short. I know we had to jump on our next topic for a short time. You
Sure.
know how flour really transform to sugar in your body. I think it just hit that note, and we can always move on.
Well, of course, as you start with digestion, from the time it enters the mouth, right, we have receptors on the tongue that will be able to help us to break down sugars that's coming in, right? So basically, flour, let's say a carbohydrate, all right? Now, if you look at what I was actually looking at is research, and you look at the different types of wheat trees, it's basically different to now, right? Now they are mass producing. With mass producing, of course, most things, most of the foods right now are genetically modified in the first place. All right.
Yes.
You can't really get away totally from that, to be honest, right? That's just my honest opinion because of even if you try practicing organic farming and different things like that, the seeds that you're getting might be genetically modified. Right. So that's just a side note. But as flour enters the body, as it enters into the stomach, as it enters the small intestine, eventually, guess what? It breaks down into sugar. Now, flour is supposed to have fiber, it's supposed to have minerals, vitamins. Now, because most of it is refined, where they pull out some of those things, and it's just white flour, most people will be using. It doesn't have half of those things that we need for proper health. Where flour, where bread's supposed to be like a staple for us, meaning bread's supposed to be something that we take, that when we put it into the body, it's supposed to strengthen us. Back then, that could have happened. Now, I just want to add this. If persons want to actually use bread, there's what you call sourdough. Right? That's the whole thing by itself. As a researcher, person can actually go into, so, you know, those flour lovers that love to eat flour, that's something. There's organic flour that persons can get. It's just that they come down in Trinidad in so small packages, and they charge you so much for it that you might make a small bread for yourself, and nobody else can get from that. So as the sugars break down, it increases the sugar within the blood. That's why diabetics who eat flour, they have a really tough time with bringing down their sugar. I will leave that at that. All right. I wanted to share something before you go. All right, well, let's go into it. Let's go into it. Into the next.
All right, let's go into it. Right, because I'm watching the time. I know time is running on us because we had a rough start, but God is good. Right. Right. We're going into a topic that men in this country, you know, is edgy on. You know, men is they just tiptoe on this one, but it is take a lot of life, which is men prostate cancer. Right. So, I just want to dive into it one time because I know time kind of running.
Okay. Well, of course, we start off with, let's say, symptoms. Right. One of the major symptoms for prostate cancer is, let's say, some men will actually start passing urine, and you might get a little blood coming from the urine. All right. Lower back pain. That's like a major sign. Now, there are men who have stage 4 cancer and never know because it's slow growing and sometimes it doesn't affect the body until they go and check to see what's going on. Then they realize to themselves, hey, wait, I have prostate cancer. I didn't know that. I didn't know what was going on. Some of those men actually die with prostate cancer and never did any treatment. They actually die in their old age. So because it's slow growing, we have the ability to, let's say, slow down the effect of that cancer on the body. But from the time a man finds out that he has it, it changes his mood, right? Where he eventually gets into a depressed mood. He gets into a stage where he's saying to himself, you know, I cannot overcome this problem. I don't know what to do, how to deal with this issue. So taking it from a natural perspective, prevention is the same thing goes for the woman as well. Diet, exercise, so lifestyle. All right. So we have, of course, in the genes, okay, some men may have, let's say, cancer within the family, prostate cancer. But with genes, we have genes, which is like a loaded gun. But lifestyle is what pulls that trigger. So if you're a man that is not sleeping properly, if you're not going out there to get enough sunlight, that man actually can be prone to developing prostate cancer. In other words, if you don't get enough vitamin D, which actually boosts the immune system, if he doesn't get enough zinc into the body, right, his testosterone levels start to drop. after a while, eventually, he can actually develop prostate cancer. Zinc actually plays a critical role in every immune cell in the human body. So if you don't get zinc, then the immune system cannot really be built properly to protect you. So that's how you're preventing. You're preventing with lifestyle habits. All right. Now, just want to, now, of course, as a man generally gets older, let's say from the, let's say 50% of all men generally have what we call BPH. That's benign prostatic hyperplasia or enlargement of the prostate, right? At that timing, it's not cancerous. But after a while, as he starts having trouble passing urine, the restriction of the flow, eventually after a while, he starts developing, the PSA level starts going up a little higher. Of course, the PSA is a test that we generally do to see if a man needs to go on to do a biopsy to see if he has cancer. So men, the first step, let me give the first step in case anybody move away from their screens. The first step, you need to do an ultrasound. You need to check the prostate. From the time you start getting signs of either restriction, excess urine at night, okay, then you're leading on to enlargement of the prostate, or you already have it already, might be slightly enlarged or mild enlarged. If you're a person that is having these constant back pains all the time, and you're not checking to see if it's either the bones, if it's pinched nerve that you're having, you're just like, okay, maybe it's the bed that I'm sleeping on, and you ignore it. Eventually, you reach into a stage where you're testing and you become that person which will have stage 4 cancer. So this particular one, of course, is the most common among men. Actually, 99% of cases occur when a man reaches the age of like 50 and over. That's when he actually develop, let's say, painful. So it eventually develops into a painful and fatal condition. Now, of course, it develops slowly. While it actually develops slowly, that's why men don't really take it on too much per se. But these are some signs and symptoms. I'll just give off symptoms that they look for. So the urgency, the difficulty urinating, the dribbling that you're having, the weak urine stream. All right. This is something that you also pay close attention to as well. So some men might go to the toilet and they're passing urine and it's just going from right there to right there, and they're peeing right next to their feet. All of that actually is indication that you could be leading up. But because it's sometimes difficult to let's say, to diagnose, unless you go and test, you will never know. And that's where the difficulty comes in. Men don't like to go and test. You have to go. All right. From the time you reach age, let's say 45 or let's say 47 and over, get a PSA test done. That's number one. Basically get an ultrasound done. Right now, most men don't really like the finger stick, so an ultrasound can actually cover that. But the finger actually helps the doctor to feel, to see if there's any irregularity. Okay, so that could be a big possibility of you helping to prevent the issue further. Okay, basically, I would use things if you're having trouble like with urine. You have a restriction. This is a simple remedy that person can use. This was actually told to me by a man. He was actually 87 years. And he was actually taking melangen. And he slices melangen up, boil that melangen like if he's making tea. And he will drink, let's say, a cup in the morning and a cup in the evening. And his restriction was actually relief from doing that. And I give it off. I give all that recipe, sometimes on the radio, to many men, and they saw tremendous results. Just a simple thing as that. Okay. Of course, men could also use things like bay leaf. Actually works good to help out. All right, that's something that you might hear new. Sopa methyl, that's something that, of course, stinger nettle is like the common one that that persons would use. That's like the red step. There's also what you call capadula. That's a bark that they actually use in Guyana. They use that, and they normally use it for sexual performances. But that can actually be used to help to prevent prostate issues. If a man is actually going through prostate cancer treatment, they could actually use that to help to reduce the amount of pain that that they're actually experiencing. Hot and cold therapies to the back area or to the scrotum. Men that actually cycle, consistently cycling, eventually they actually cause damage to the prostate from consistently cycling. All right, this is something that you have seen in research. All right, so I'll just hold up there for now, and you can ask some questions.
All right. Since I small growing up and hear men talk with this prostate test, it seems like like it's a big hurdle for most men to just to go and do that minute test. I mean, I could contest. I did it, right? And
Right.
I put my ego down, and it just about that 30 seconds. And the same thing you mentioned there, Doc, where the doctor said the finger is ready to test and see if it's not smooth or if it's So she would know just how you would know, right? And I asked the question, she explained to me, so I can say that now, because I used to do the normal blood work for some years, and then I say, you know what? Let me just go and do the finger.
Yeah, you brave it.
Yeah, I feel like a man, right? And when I finished there, I was like, I felt like a bigger man than I am because I know I did something good for me.
Yeah, and you didn't feel violated as well.
No. I'm 100%. That can violate me, right? And one of the things that I always say on this podcast, Doc, is that, and I encourage people to do, not just with this prostate, but with any illness, take a chance on yourself. Give yourself a chance to just know to yourself at that point in time, whatever test you go to do and come out okay. I mean, it's a good feeling instead of waiting down the road and hoping that when the pain starts or whatever discomfort starts, whatever part of your body that you're going now, and the chances are the news is not news you will want to hear. You understand? So I think what a lot of us lacking in this country is information, education. Once you be on radio doing the thing, right? We have to continue to do programs like this. You have to continue to do your radio your program, and that's why Fortress Fitness Lifestyle Magazine. Last 2 weeks ago we had a symposium where we would have taken we was taking questions. I had a doctor, I had nutritionists and things like that. And people came from the community and was asking questions. And it was well received, right? So the plan is to go to other communities to try to reach in the home. Because if you reach in communities, at least you reach the information reaching, because not everybody is being on social media, especially over a certain age, right? So a lot of older people, yes, listen to radio, but some of the radios know, the kind of music they're playing, the older folks say, you know what?
They don't want to listen to that.
Right. And they're Googling and they're not on Facebook. So that's why it's critical for people like you and me and the movement that I have and just what you and the other doctors are doing is to go out there and get the information. Right? It's easy to say, you know what, they could Google the information. The young people, yes, but the older people really ain't going to live on Google and search for nothing. And as you know, you could get good and bad on Google as well. Right? It could guide you down a wrong way. Right? So for me, I prefer to actually have the dialogue with a real doctor who could say, hey, all right, guide you, right? And everything is boiled back to nutrition, right? And lifestyle choices, right, that we take from now. Because a lot of people going through life just hoping for the best and eating everything in sight and hoping that when they reach 40 and going down, all will be well. And you and I know that is really a myth. You understand? So one of the things that we have to do as men, is try to keep encouragement. I do it on work as well. Hey, one ticket test, because I can tell you this, where I work, right, for a few years, when I have this conversation with men who close to retire, is like in the whole 30 years of working, 20 something years, they never took a prostate test ever in their life. You understand? And they're close to retirement. So I'm pretty sure, right, that is not a good thing. Right, because as you rightfully said, Doc, is that the food that was prepared 30, 40 years ago to our grandparents and parents who would have eaten the same thing, including chicken, as you said, right? The process is the problem now, right? It's not just the name chicken and the process to rear those white chicken to feed the population that is growing right? As you rightfully said, if you start to go organic, they can't grow enough organic chicken to feed the world, you know, right? So it all depends on you again taking a chance and saying, you know what, I'm not going to eat chicken unless it's organic based on in the backyard and you know. But there are people doing it in the dock. I purchased eggs from someone who grow organic chicken, right?
Right.
Because I don't eat chicken. Yes, now I do chicken. Yes, now for that same reason you mentioned that,
Mhm.
right? With the hormones and all these things like that, right? So I am saying to myself, hey, you know how I have a chance down the road. I need to take a chance today, all right? Change my the way that I eat today and hope that down the road it gives my body a chance to fight off. If anything should come, it will be in a position, as you rightly said, to fight it or put up a good fight at that point in time. But just going through life, just hoping for the best and eating everything in sight and not controlling portion size is the next thing. We have an issue, a big problem in Trinidad, portion size.
Mhm.
You know, if the plate is over full and falling off, we must eat that. We must
Feeling
scrape it
good.
off. Yeah. Right. So it is the information is critical, right? I know time is, Doc, I want to have you back again once you have the time, right? Because I know the knowledge that you have, right? Just as your colleague last week, it's 1 hour is not enough. So, the prostate cancer, we give a touch on it. I want to touch on breast cancer some other time, obesity, right? There's a lot of stuff, clogged arteries,
Mm.
heart problems. I had two co-workers in my time for a long right in the job. They will have, have to talk,
Yes.
this kind of thing. So we will keep in touch, Doc. And before we go, I'll give you the floor to if you have social media handles, if you have anything you want to say to the viewers before you leave, and then we'll just close it off. Thank you so much.
All right. Actually, just wanted to share one thing for men
Mhm.
that they can do, and that's with the use of tomatoes, all right, or some people say tomatoes. Of course, there's lycopene, which is found in that, all right, because of the
Yeah.
red pigment has lycopene in it. What
Mhm.
you can do, you could actually cook the tomatoes like tomato chuka, and then you put after you finish, you put a little olive oil because it's a fat soluble. The more
Mhm.
you absorb of that lycopene, it helps to work on more prevention of things like prostate cancer. Right? So
Right.
that's that. But we could go so much more into nutrition and how to work on the prostate
Yeah.
cancer and different things like that. Okay,
Yeah.
but I know that we don't have much time again. So
Yeah.
of course, the
Yeah.
persons generally want to get more information, right? Because people are destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. Right? We need knowledge.
Yes.
We need to share
Yeah.
knowledge. If
Yes.
they want more information, they could actually check out like Eden Heights YouTube page, check out the Facebook page. We have some lives on there that person can actually watch and gain information from there. Okay, like
Yes.
Eden Heights Clinic. And as you gain information, you could share with others. As you share information, the more healthier a person get, the better the country gets. All right. So I'll leave it at that. I wish I had some more time. I had so much more
Yeah.
to
No,
do
but it's
for.
fine. But so, Doc, so people watching this program and they want to get on to you, where can they find you?
Where well, two places, either in Shogunas, right? Eat Nice
Mhm.
Clinic in Shogunas, that's number 41A Ramsaran Street. And then we have number 13 Montague Avenue, that's in Trin City here. If they want to call us, they could call 640-8985 or 613-7571. And that's for Shogunas. So any one of those two numbers, they can call and they can come in. Sometimes we have a free consultation, sometimes like a Thursday or Wednesday sometimes. So you can take advantage of that. And if they have any more issues that they're dealing with, so women, men, PCOS, if you want to become pregnant, talk to God because He is the first one that
Mhm.
actually is in charge of that. And then, of course, with the
Yes.
information that we share, just pay close attention and try your best to do.
Yes. And for the men, get brave and go and do that test.
Yes, definitely. I hope they get brave by tonight. By tonight. Yes. And if you want to keep the one happy as well too, get her to eat healthy so that her progesterone levels will rise high. As it rises high, estrogen goes back down, and guess what's going to happen? You're going to have a happy home, happy wife, happy life.
Well, Doc,
That's something that people say.
yeah, I heard it before, right? So we leave it as that, right?
Yes.
I just want to say again, just I want to thank you for making the time to come on the podcast, Fortress Fitness. I know we had some technical difficulties earlier in this podcast, but you know what? God is great, and I mean everything happened for a reason, and we would have continued, right? So thanks again. Candice will get back on to you based on whenever you had the time again, maybe the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month, to touch another topic again where health and wellness is so important in this hemisphere and in the world, right? So thanks again for actually making the time. You are going to be asked to have an article in the upcoming magazine in July, right? And just to spread the word, not just on podcast, but through the magazine, through the page, and we are pushing to reach as much people that we can, because we may not be able to save all, but we could save a lot with what we're doing here, what you're doing here on your radio program, and by extension, the platforms that you want to have information on. So I want to thank you again for coming on this podcast. We at Fortress Fitness Lifestyle Magazine appreciate you, and may God continue to bless you and your family until we meet again. Yeah.
And thank you for the invitation as well.
Yes. So thanks. Have a blessed night.
All right. Blessings.
Yeah.
Special thanks to our partners Virtuscope VA Services and Abini Pro Fitness. And don't forget to get issue 2 of the Fortress Fitness Lifestyle Magazine available now.